Zipper rolls out to the right, pitches off to Taylor, and Taylor's to the 20, down to the 15, down to 10, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Touchdown, Billy Taylor! Touchdown, Billy Taylor! Billy Taylor scored a touchdown from 21 yards out. The crowd goes berserk. It was November 22nd, 1969. That they came to Barry, Michigan, all dressed in maize and blue. The words were said, the prayers were read, and everybody cried. But when they closed the coffin, there was someone else inside. Oh, they came to Barry, Michigan, but Michigan wasn't dead. And when the game was over, it was someone else instead. 11 Michigan Wolverines put on the gloves of gray, and as the organ played the victors, they laid Woody Hayes away. Under center is Wangler at the 45. He goes back. He's looking for a receiver. He throws downfield to Carter. Who's got it better than us? Nobody!
Welcome to the Michigan Man Podcast on Wolverine Sports Radio, a member of the V Sporto Network, and in partnership with SB Nation's Maize and Brew, for Wolverine fans from coast to coast. Go Blue and welcome to the show. I'm your host, Mike Fitzpatrick. This week, fresh off the bye, we stay on the road for a top 25 matchup with Illinois. We'll hear from Coach Brett Bielema in a moment, and then on our Game Day segment, we'll be joined by John Borton from the Wolverine Magazine. First, my view from Section 17 to get us going. We've had 2 weeks to get healthy, figure some things out, and get Jack Tuttle more snaps. I think it's fairly obvious defenses will have to play us differently with Jack out there. He still hasn't played much football in his career and didn't start practicing until 2 weeks ago. You don't have to be a football guru to know that when you can't throw the ball, defenses just load the box and make you one-dimensional. If Jack can do enough to make defenses account for that threat, more running lanes will open up, and our O-line won't be outnumbered at the line of scrimmage, and they have been all year. All Jack has to be is a high-level game manager who can make enough throws that defenses back off and don't turn the ball over. If that happens, this offense should be better in the second half. We'll find out this Saturday against a pretty good Illini defense in a very hostile environment. At his Monday presser, Brett Bielema said this is a big one for his team.
Yeah, the last one was pretty big, right? And then the reason I just got choked up is you guys probably know what happened the last time we played, right? So the last one was big. I thought we had a good enough football team to go up there and win. Unfortunately, it didn't, right? And there's a lot of things that went into it, things that we could have done better. So we didn't get to rematch these guys last year, so we got a chance to rematch them this year. Those things mean a lot. I think even in league play, it's changed a little bit now, but this year we had 6 rematch games. We're through 4 of them. We're 3-1. Last year against those same 4 teams, we were 0-4.
Even though he's been vocal in the past about his distaste of all things Michigan, he said he respects the program and even has fond memories of Coach Lloyd Carr.
I've been in this conference a long time. Right. I tell those guys all the time, right? So first time we played these guys, I was a redshirt freshman, saw Bo Schembechler on the other sideline, saw him get a penalty in the first half, which brought the whole place to crazy, which I thought was crazy, watching someone that I'd only seen on TV, I have a huge respect for who they are, what they are. Actually, Lloyd Carr, when I first came into the league, when I was a head coach, he was the head coach of Michigan, and him and Coach Alvarez were very tight. So he actually kind of grabbed me after that first year. The only game I lost my first year, we went 12-1, was to Michigan. And I remember Lloyd grabbing me at spring meetings and just kind of talking about what I had in front of me and what I should, be aware of, what I should take, and just really kind of took a young coach aside.
My guest today says that with Illinois' great start and their dislike of all things Michigan, this will be a crazy environment on Saturday. He said playing from ahead will be key in this matchup. Joining me next is senior editor John Borton from the Wolverine Magazine. So stay with us. with us on our game day show as we talk about Michigan through the bye week and, of course, heading to Illinois this Saturday is senior editor John Borton from the Wolverine Magazine. Once again, great to have you back with us, John.
Always good to be with you, Mike, and it's an interesting time to be with you given that we're at the midway point of a Michigan season that has had a lot of twists and turns so far.
Yeah, no doubt about that. We are at the midway point, so this is the first bye. We get another bye later on, but one of the things you never really know is how those bye weeks affect teams. But for a myriad of reasons, Michigan needed it, if for nothing else than to regroup, John.
To regroup, absolutely. You're coming off a loss at Washington, one where, you had flashes of, okay, this thing's getting turned around. A new quarterback steps in there, but things don't go well towards the end. They don't finish that game. So you're trying to get past that, and you're trying to build on the good things that you saw. It's Jack Tuttle comes in and leads 3 straight back-to-back scoring drives for the Wolverines, and all of a sudden everybody's like, okay, here we go. This is what we were looking for. And if you can build on that and carry it over, certainly I'm sure Jack Tuttle has benefited from having a couple of weeks here to work with his teammates and get fully back up to speed with the number one snaps. He's been practicing for a couple of weeks before Washington, but the fact that now he is dubbed the guy behind center, and he's getting the snaps with the players that he'll be doing battle with down in Illinois. I think that means a lot, and it allows this bye week allowed Michigan to get some people healed up. They especially needed that. The offensive line in particular had some folks nicked up.
Well, in a strange way, John, this Michigan offense can and probably will look a lot different starting this Saturday. I think having Jack under center really opens up the playbook, doesn't it?
I think it does in a lot of ways. I mean, it's just the threat to throw the football and throw it effectively. I mean, you honestly didn't have that with Alex Orji, who did a good job in coming in and leading Michigan past USC in particular. But when the downfield pass is not a major threat, it just allows teams to play a different sort of defense and to really put you in a bind. And I think that that's the point to which Michigan got. They were trying to fight back in these games, and the 14-0 deficit at Washington was enough, along with the fact that Jack Tuttle was healthy enough to play to make that switch. And the other thing about it is, honestly, we heard in the summertime that Jack Tuttle very well could be the guy. After all, he's a seventh-year veteran, a grad guy that has backed up the likes of Michael Penix and J.J. McCarthy here at Michigan. He knows what he's doing. He's confident. And I just think that, it may well have been that he could have been your starting quarterback from the very beginning of the season. And who knows? I think you'd be hard-pressed to say it would have made a difference, a game-winning difference against Texas, because for my money, Texas may be the best team in the country right now. But at the same time, you'd stand a much better chance in that Washington game if it was Jack Tuttle right out of the chute. And so, Michigan is in a position where it has everything that it would have as a goal still in front of it, technically. I mean, you could still make the playoffs. You could still win the Big Ten. But it's an uphill battle to do those things, given unless you really get better in a lot of areas.
Well, one of the areas we do need to get better at is the offensive line. They needed the bye week for sure. A lot of bunged up guys there. They have not been bad, but they have struggled for consistency and in pass blocking, as we've seen. We won't know until Saturday, but it sounds like we might see some reshuffling to the lineup, doesn't it?
Yeah, there's a possibility there. There's some different names that we've heard, and you're certainly looking for Miles Hinton to get back into the lineup because that's he's a major part there at left tackle. So, and as you mentioned, it is very important that this team takes a step up in pass blocking because you're one hit away from Jack Tuttle being back out of there and being in a situation where you have two guys that you have replaced at quarterback going back in. And I think Michigan drew a lot of confidence in those series. And the players have talked about this. When Jack Tuttle came in, he's got an energy. He's got a huddle command that says, focus on me right now. Look at me. Listen to what I'm saying. That they appreciate it. And you want to keep him upright through the back half of this season. There's no question about it.
Well, another thing that changes when Tuttle is under center, I mean, actually a few things change, but it doesn't take an offensive guru to figure this out, is that because defenses have to account for his arm, this could really open up more running room, more running lanes for Mullings and for Donovan Edwards. And the O-line won't be blocking 8-man fronts if Jack can hit a few passes. That can be a game changer.
There's no doubt about it. I mean, certainly some of those 8-man lines can occasionally give you that 40 or 50-yard run when you pop through the initial. You don't have as much back. But over the long haul, if you are getting the line jammed with guys, it's really tough to run against. And Michigan has experienced that. They had the huge rushing game against USC and some other ones where they've done really well, despite the fact that teams haven't respected their passing game to the degree you'd like. But now you're absolutely right. Jack Tuttle provides the ability and the willingness to throw downfield, and it just changes things. It changes the defense. It is a door opener for guys like Michigan has in the backfield, Khalil Mullings and Donovan Edwards, the guys that have really helped carry this team to the 4 wins that they've had. And the more opportunities that you can make this more well-rounded, that you can get some of these receivers going, that you can keep the tight ends going in the pass game and take some pressure off the running backs and open things up better for them, the better off Michigan is in the back half of the season.
Well, going into the bye, there was a lot of concern, John, about our receiving core. Some were saying they're running bad routes, they're not getting separation. To be honest with you, I think some of that might be fact, but I'm not sure because I want to see these guys with a quarterback who can get them the ball and let them run. I still think it's not as bad as some people think with that group.
There's some talent there. There's no question about it. You've got guys that can run, can play. They haven't been the major guys on a team.
No.
As far as the pass catchers, you look at back to last year, you're talking about the Roman Wilsons of the world that are now in the NFL, and you had some major targets, and guys like Samaj Morgan weren't in that position. He was a freshman last year, and now he is looked at as one of the major targets. So, there's growth that happens along the way, and these guys are getting more and more used to being out there. I do think that they have had some struggles getting separation, but at the same time, you haven't had a lot of respect, as we mentioned, for Michigan's pass game, and that allows defensive backs to play a little differently as well. So we're going to see what Michigan comes forward with. Going forward, they certainly have to continue to use the tight ends because they've been the most productive pass catchers on this team. But you also need the passing game in general to take a step forward. It all plays together. The pass blocking that we've mentioned, getting a guy behind center that now is going to deliver the ball with confidence and all those sorts of things, as well as getting your receivers to get better separation, whether through play design or just how they're executing, putting a foot in the ground and losing some defensive backs along the way.
Well, I think we both hold out hope for the offense in the second half of the season. I've not been nearly as down or disappointed with the defense as some of our fans. I mean, yes, secondary coverage has been, shaky at times. Tackling really has not been good. That's been obvious. But overall, the defense has been okay, not great, but it has been good, hasn't it, John?
Yeah, it's been very solid. I think it is the type of defense that will give you a chance to win every game. That's what I saw people pinning their hopes on for this season, and that's still the number one way that this team can win football games is by holding opponents in check and then scoring enough points to win. Because certainly this offense, you look at it scoring almost 2 touchdowns fewer than it did a year ago. And then at the same time, as you mentioned, this defense has not been all what was hoped or advertised to this point. There was a statistic that really jumped out to me as I was reading our own website this week, and that is the fact that in 6 games, opponents have completed 71 passes for gains of 10 yards plus, which happens to be 7th worst in the country. You look at Michigan in 2023, and I know that's an unfair comparison. Not as much defensively, though, because they didn't lose 10 starters like they did on offense. But you look at last year, they gave up 92 plays of passing plays of 10 yards or more in 15 games. And this year it's 71 in. And you got somebody, as noteworthy as Will Johnson, the cornerback, who himself is disappointed in that sort of thing and feeling like they need to pick it up. There have been too many busted coverages. There have been too many, just in general, little letdowns that become big letdowns if they pile one on top of the other. So this defense, as mentioned, gives Michigan the best chance to win, but it too has to get better in the back half of the season.
Well, I think another important thing to keep in mind with the defense when we're reviewing it at the midway point is the last 3 years, they had an offense that had the ball for huge chunks of time, so they weren't on the field nearly as much, which makes any defense better. And that is the key in the second half of the season is more balance, getting that defense off the field, because in the third and fourth quarter where we've seen them having problems, they really have been on the field too much, John.
That's a great point. Complementary football. And, it's not, it's how long you're out there and where does the opposition get the football back. Against Washington, when Jack Tuttle came in and led those drives, Washington was absolutely on its heels. Down the stretch, it's not that the offense had to punt the ball away and not possess it long enough. They gave the football up via turnover and gave Washington short fields, and that puts, as you mentioned, great point, that puts the defense in a bind. It's got to be complementary football. That's what we hear about all the time. The best defense is a good offense because that defense is sitting there designing plays or talking about the adjustments they want to make on the sideline rather than battling and getting more tired on the field. So, yeah, absolutely, that's a fantastic point, Mike, that they need better complementary football in these last 6 regular season games.
Absolutely. And another aspect of the game that really helps the defense and hasn't so far this year is the punting game. Tommy Doman, he's not Ray Guy, but last year he was rock solid. And with this year's team, we're going to need him to flip the field more. That's just the reality of it. It's hard to figure out with a kicker, especially what's happened with him so far, isn't it, John?
It is, in a way, and that's one of the if you were to name the top 5 season shockers, I would say that would be one of them, because he would have been a guy that you come into the season and it's like, okay, check. You don't even worry about that. No problem. Place kicking would have been a much bigger concern because it was an unknown, and yet you've got Mr. Zavada just absolutely tearing it up, seemingly coming out of nowhere via transfer. But Tommy Doman struggling a bit. You haven't seen it the same way, and I have heard my good friend Jerry Hanlon worked with kickers a lot, as well as building some of the finest Michigan offensive lines of all time. And he always compared a kicker's efforts, and that includes punters, to that of a golf swing.
Oh, yeah.
And having experienced the highs and lows of the sport of golf, that resonates with me. That makes you understand that just like guys on the PGA Tour that are up and down and lose things and then have to tweak things and get coaches to see little differences in what they're doing to set them right, that I get it. If you can get a little bit out of sync, and that's something that you really hope for Tommy Doman's sake, that he can get back in that groove, because certainly Michigan needs that. That's part of your defense a lot of times. I mean, that's another first down that the opposition has to make when he's booming it like he can.
You're right, and it's often from the fan base something or a facet of the game that is overlooked. And this year we're seeing it manifest itself because we just need to flip the field when the offense struggles. So yes, big key in the second half of the season is getting him out of his funk. But as Jim used to say, the bye week is improvement week. And we all hope that's true, because this Saturday down in Champaign-Urbana, that is going to be a nut house environment. They're doing the Red Grange thing, I think 101 years from that great game for Red Grange. So, and they're 5-1. It's going to get amped up there, isn't it?
No doubt. I've been to Illinois many times. I can attest beyond any question, Illinois does not like Michigan.
No.
And that's not uncommon, but the Illinois fans seem to take special pleasure in quote-unquote welcoming Michigan's team and fans down to Champaign. So it will be, I guarantee you, a tough environment, and it'll be a tough matchup just because of the fact that Illinois is vastly improved the last few years under Brett Bielema, and you look at, you were mentioning before we started recording that Luke Allmeyer is somebody to really be reckoned with. He has the kind of wheels that pose a problem in an opposing quarterback. He's thrown for 1,400 yards this year, but he can tuck it away. He can scramble. He can create time for himself. It feels a little bit like a J.J. McCarthy situation, and Altmaier probably has better wheels than J.J. I just think that this is going to be a challenge. Now, you lost a few Michigan fans in arguing that this week when this team went toe-to-toe with Purdue, that's had all kinds of trouble. But at the same time, that's a one-off to me, because when Illinois has a mindset to play Purdue in a year like this, and as opposed to a mindset to host Michigan and have a chance when the Wolverines are a little bit vulnerable to take them down, I really believe that is a different set of circumstances altogether. I think they'll be very, very ready to play this one.
Oh yeah, not even a news flash that Illinois does not like Michigan. That's been going on a long time. I was watching Brett Bielema's press conference this week, and it was almost like he was grinding his teeth talking about Michigan. To me, it's a situational game with this team this year in that environment. And the one key to me, if you're looking at keys to the game, is do not go out there and get down to these guys early, because with Jack really getting his first extended playing time, you don't want to do that.
No, this is a team, Michigan team, that has played very, very well in building a lead early in the season. And the problem was then teams coming back and making some of these games very close. But you'd rather have that situation, certainly, than what you faced in Washington trying to come back from 14-0. Even though they did it successfully, if you make mistakes then towards the end, as Michigan has in most games, and let down a little bit, it's the difference between winning and losing, digging that hole. And the more Michigan might fall behind in this particular game, the louder that crowd is going to get. It's going to be very hostile. Now, if you're Michigan, you want to take it right back to when Jack Tuttle first came in at Washington and have those successful drives early that set it in their mind, and maybe a little bit in Illinois' mind. Okay, this is not the same deal. They are going to be able to throw the ball. We have to guard all the exits. We have to respect that, and it changes the ball game.
We talked about this before we started taping, but I've seen Illinois twice so far this year against Penn State, and they competed in that game really well, had their chances many times to go ahead in that game. Yeah, last weekend against Purdue, how that turned out into a shootout was sort of crazy to watch. But the odd thing about this Illinois team is that the passing attack is leading the way. You mentioned Luke Altmaier, 14 TDs after 6 games. He's run for, I think, just around 250 yards. That is not what you expect from a Brett Bielema team, is it?
No, not really, because you kind of think of it in almost a hardball-like fashion. You're thinking run first. But that is not this type of team. And you do have a very effective passing attack. Altmaier hitting I hate to keep making the JJ comparison because I don't think he's as good as JJ McCarthy, but he's completing passes at a 67.7% rate.
Yeah.
And that is JJ-esque in terms of last year. So the guy's thrown 1 interception and 14 touchdown passes.
Right.
That is just eye-popping in terms of its effectiveness. I mean, taking care of the football and yet is able to throw it in the end zone for points. So that's something that, again, Michigan secondary, which has been tested, will be tested again. And the statistic I mentioned about some of the big plays against this defense, you've got to step forward in this game, or else Altmaier's going to have a day.
No doubt about it. And, overall, the Illini, probably an above-average defensive team. Luke Altmaier, as we've been discussing, a dual-threat quarterback who's having a great year. Special teams are really, really good, so that's something else to keep an eye on. This will not be the most dynamic team Michigan has played so far this year, but they are a really good, sound football team, aren't they?
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. I mean, there's no points that you would look at and say, well, this is the weak spot. This is what you go after necessarily. Solid, I think that's a good description. Michigan has been solid at times, but not solid in all ways. And that's the thing. You have to become that solid team to shore things up and not put yourself in a position on the road that you could let this one slip away. Because you look at Michigan's situation right now. We saw those games last weekend. We saw Oregon and Ohio State battle it out right to the last second and have those offenses that can be explosive and score points in a big hurry. And you're thinking about the fact that, guess what? Michigan still has those two to go on the schedule.
Yeah.
That's a big deal. And it makes the games such as going to Illinois, going to Indiana, all that much bigger because you cannot afford losses in these games. And these are games that I think if you played it with last year's roster, you'd march into those places and say, we're going to take this place over. This is we're going to nameless, faceless opponents, yes, but we're going to take over their stadium. You can't think. I don't think that kind of confidence is necessarily warranted this year. You have to really work to beat a resurgent Illinois, to beat a vastly resurgent Indiana team down there. And then you're dealing with the big boys, one of them in your own stadium and one of them down in Columbus. So it is a loaded back half of the schedule, in my opinion, and it starts right now.
It absolutely is a loaded schedule in the back half, no doubt about it. Final question before we let you get away, John. It seems like, each week as we've been getting ready for games, we've said, hey, this is a pivotal game. And, I guess for the 7th week in a row, we can say that again because, you're coming out of a bye and you're looking, as we just talked about, the back end of that schedule. For so many reasons, this is a pivotal game that Michigan simply has got to win, don't they?
Oh, absolutely. If you are to keep alive the sorts of things that we were talking about, the goals, the preseason goals, and you're going to have people that say, look, I mean, those were foolish goals and that sort of thing. But you're not thinking that way if you're in Schembechler Hall. You're thinking, hey, we can still get on a run. We can still be in these games. We can win them and put ourselves in position to have very meaningful games down the stretch, including in Columbus, Ohio. But that starts right now. That starts over these next few weeks because you think about Michigan, Illinois. If you get this one on the road, then you come back. You're talking about the rivalry game, Michigan State. And then you're dealing with one of those two big boys that I mentioned in Oregon, but you've got them in your own building. If somehow you get this one on the road and that gets you going on a little bit of a roll, it could change really the outlook for the back half and the entire season for this team.
Again, as we said, a pivotal game for Michigan. Here with us this week as we've reviewed the season up to the midway point and looked ahead to Saturday has been senior editor John Borton from the Wolverine Magazine. John, always a pleasure to have you on the show. We appreciate you carving out time for us, and we look forward to another visit soon.
Fantastic to be with you, Mike. Always a pleasure. Thank you.
On Quick Hits today, no injury updates since Monday. Sherrone said if Miles Hinton is healthy, he'll start on the left side. Greg Crippen will be at center if Dom Jadis is not ready. We might also see Jeff Percy at right tackle in place of young Evan Link. As always, we'll know when they trot on the field Saturday. Jimmy Rolder is due back too, and he has really been playing good at linebacker. Here are some game day notes of interest. The Illini are ranked number 22, while Michigan is 2 notches below them at number 24. The last time these two teams were ranked for a game played in Champaign was in 2000. Michigan leads the series with 72 wins against 23 losses. There have been 2 ties. The first meeting between these two teams was on November 12, 1898, in a game played in Detroit, a 12-5 Michigan win. The last meeting was a memorable one in Ann Arbor on November 19th of 2022, a week before the Ohio State game. Thanks to Jake Moody's last-second field goal, it was a 1917 Michigan win. Brett Bielema is 23-20 in his 4th year as head coach of the Illini. His overall record in 16 years as a head coach is 120-78. Last year, the Illini finished the season 5-7 overall, 3-6 in the Big Ten. They finished the season unranked and were not bowl eligible. The weatherman says we'll have a picture-perfect October day for football. Sunny skies with near 70-degree temperatures, light winds, and basically no chance of rain. I know you've heard this before, but this is another pivotal game. We've been saying it for 7 weeks now, and it really is. With 2 weeks to prepare and Jack getting his first start, we need to show some real progress on offense. The D has to tighten up too. It's one game at a time, but this feels like a must-win to me. It's going to be an adventure, but we're sort of used to that this season. Next week, it's back home for a night game with Sparty, what both schools do not want, but that's what happens when TV wants big ratings and night games. I'm still lining up guests for next week, but we'll be back on Tuesday with our Spartan Visitors Edition, then on Thursday with our Michigan Game Day show. That will do it for this week. Have a great Wolverine weekend, everyone. I'm your host, Mike Fitzpatrick. Think victory, beat Illinois. Until we meet again, take care, and as always, go blue.
Thanks for joining us today on The Michigan Man, here on Wolverine Sports Radio, a member of the V Sporto Network, and in partnership with SB Nation's Maize and Brew. Our listener lines are open 24/7 for your calls at 313-263-4842. That's 313-263-4842. Or email us at themichiganmanpodcast@yahoo.com. That's themichiganmanpodcast@yahoo.com. The Michigan Man Podcast is produced at the studios of Robin Lynn Productions, Allen Park, Michigan, and is not affiliated with the University of Michigan. Go Blue!